"If you can't handle my male friends, that's your problem," she said while sitting on his lap at the party. I said, "You're right, I can't." Sat down next to a girl at the bar and started flirting. My ex came over furious. "What are you doing?" I said, "Making new friends, you inspired me," and left with the girl. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. The bass from the speakers thumped through the floorboards. A constant, stupid heartbeat for a party that had peaked an hour ago. I was leaning against the kitchen island, nursing a warm beer, watching Ella hold court from across the room. She was glowing, animated, the center of a laughing group that included Alex, always Alex. For 3 years, Alex had been the asterisk next to our relationship, the just a friend from her college days. The one who texted her memes at midnight, the one whose bro hugs lingered a second too long. I brought it up carefully a handful of times. "Babe, it just makes me uncomfortable sometimes. You're being paranoid. He's like a brother to me. He doesn't look at you like a brother." "Well, that's your insecurity, Mark, not my problem." That phrase, "not my problem." It had become her mantra, a dismissal wrapped in therapy. Speak. I tried to swallow it, to be the cool, secure boyfriend. But tonight the acid of it was burning a hole in my gut. Alex said something and Ella threw her head back, laughing, placing a hand on his arm for balance. Then in a move that seemed both casual and horrifically deliberate, she perched sideways on his lap. It wasn't a stumble, it was a settlement. His hands didn't hover awkwardly. They rested easily on her hips, his thumbs tracing small circles on the fabric of her dress. A cold fist clenched in my chest. I pushed off the island and crossed the room. The noise and laughter seemed to fade into a tunnel. The only clear thing, the sight of my girlfriend making herself at home on another man. "Ella," I said, my voice sounding strangely calm over the music. "Can we talk for a second?" She turned, her smile still bright from whatever joke Alex had whispered. It dimmed slightly when she saw my face. "God, Mark, not this again." Her tone was a public announcement, loud enough for their little circle to hear. "What now?" I gestured, a small, tight motion of my hand towards her and Alex. This is a bit much, don't you think?" She rolled her eyes, a masterpiece of performative exasperation. She looked at her friends, not at me. "See, this is what I deal with." She took a swig of her drink, the ice cubes clinking like a punctuation mark. "If you can't handle my male friends, that's your problem. Alex is just a friend, you're being insecure." Alex smirked up at me, his arms a possessive bracket around Ella. "Chill out, man, we're just having fun, don't be that guy." That guy, the controlling, jealous boyfriend, the villain in their cool, easygoing story. For 3 years, I'd twisted myself into not trying not to be that guy. I'd bitten my tongue, swallowed my pride, rationalized every text, every closed door hangout, every "oh, he's just like that." But seeing her settled so comfortably in his lap, seeing the smug victory on his face and the utter dismissal on hers, the knots loosened, the fog of anxiety, the constant second-guessing, it just evaporated. What was left was a clear, cold, and simple truth. I looked directly at Ella. I didn't even grant Alex a glance. He was irrelevant. This was between her and me. "You know what?" I said, my voice still quiet, but it cut through the music. "You're absolutely right." A triumphant little smile touched her lips. She'd won again. "Finally, you get it." "It is my problem," I continued, the words feeling clean and sharp in my mouth. "And I've decided I don't want this problem anymore." The smile froze. Confusion flickered in her eyes, then irritation. "What does that mean?" But I was already turning away. The conversation was over, the relationship was over, the clarity was breathtaking. I walked towards the crowded makeshift bar in the dining room. A strange lightness in my steps. The heavy, sick feeling was gone, replaced by a hollow, clean space. At the bar, a guy was monologuing at a woman who was nodding politely, her eyes scanning for an escape. She had a kind face, intelligent eyes currently glazed with boredom. I slid into the space beside her, catching the bartender's attention. "Can I get a whiskey?" "Neat." And I glanced at the woman's nearly empty wine glass. "A refill of the Cabernet, please." The guy talking at her blinked, annoyed at the interruption. She looked at me, surprise and relief in her expression. I offered her a small, genuine smile. No pressure, just an open door. Looked like you could use a cavalry charge, I said, my voice low. She laughed. A real one. Was it that obvious? He's been explaining the blockchain to me for 15 minutes. I think he's trying to mine my patience. Brutal, I said, accepting the drinks, handing her the wine. I'm Mark. Chloe and you are my timely hero. She clinked her glass against my whiskey, escaping a scene of your own. I took a sip, the warmth of it spreading through the new hollow space inside me. Something like that. Just decided to stop solving a puzzle that didn't want to be solved. She nodded as if she understood perfectly. We talked about the terrible party music, about the weird art on the walls, about a documentary we'd both seen. It was easy, light, no subtext, no walking on eggshells. It was a conversation, not a negotiation. That's when the storm cloud arrived. Ella materialized at my elbow, her energy a crackle of furious heat. She'd left Alex's lap. Her face was flushed, not with drink, but with outrage. "What the hell are you doing, Mark?" she hissed, her voice a low, sharp blade meant for me alone. "Are you trying to embarrass me, to make some pathetic point?" I turned slowly. I looked at her, really looked. The woman I'd loved, the woman I'd planned a future with. Now just a person vibrating with anger on a sticky floor. I felt nothing. No hurt, no love, no anger, just a distant observational pity. I glanced at Chloe, who was watching with curious, calm eyes, then back to Ella. My voice was flat, calm as a placid lake. "I'm making new friends. You inspired me." She flinched as if I'd slapped her. The script was all wrong. I was supposed to be begging, arguing, justifying. My calmness was a weapon she didn't know how to counter. "We're not done talking," she sputtered, her volume rising. "You can't just walk away and flirt with someone. We need to talk about this." I finished my whiskey, set the glass down with a soft click. I turned fully to Chloe, offering Ella my shoulder. "This party's dead," I said to Chloe, my tone shifting back to the easy one we'd been using. "I know a great quiet spot for a real drink. Interested?" Chloe's eyes darted between me and the seething Ella. A small, understanding smile touched her lips. She wasn't a pawn. She was a willing conspirator in my escape. "Absolutely," she said, her voice clear. "I've hit my blockchain limit for the night." Ella stood there, utterly ignored as we gathered our things. I didn't say another word to her. I didn't look back as we weaved through the crowd towards the door. The last thing I heard was the strangled, furious sound of her calling my name, swallowed by the thumping music. Outside, the cool night air was a baptism. I took a deep breath. "So?" Chloe said lightly as we walked towards the street. "A puzzle that didn't want to be solved, huh?" "Something like that," I said, pulling out my phone. Before I even unlocked it, I went to my settings and muted Ella's notifications, calls, texts, everything. I didn't block her. That would be an action, a reaction. This was simpler. This was silence. I looked at Chloe under the street lamp. The quiet place is called The Anchor. It's about a 10-minute walk. Good whiskey selection. "Lead the way, hero," she said. And I did. I walked away from the problem, and I didn't once look back. The first week was a phantom limb syndrome of the heart. I'd wake up and reach for my phone, muscle memory, seeking her good morning text. The silence that greeted me instead was a physical weight on my chest. I'd see a meme online and think, Ella would laugh at that before the memory of her laugh from Alex's lap would slice through the thought, leaving a clean, cold cut. The pain wasn't a scream. It was a constant low-grade hum, like the tinnitus after a too-loud concert. But I had made a decision at that party, a clean surgical cut. I honored it. I didn't unmute her notifications. I deleted her number. Not blocked, deleted. Blocking felt like an engagement, a battle line. Deletion was an eraser. I archived all our photos to a hidden folder on a cloud drive I wouldn't access. I wasn't trying to destroy the past. I was just putting it in a box and storing it in a mental attic. Out of sight, out of daily mind. My friend David, who'd been at the party and seen the whole miserable finale, became my anchor. He didn't push for details. He just showed up. "You look like hell," he said on day 3, letting himself into my apartment with a six-pack and a bag of grotesquely salty pretzels, but also weirdly calm. "I feel hollow," I admitted, cracking open a beer. "But the hollowness is mine. It's not filled with her noise anymore. The noise being Alex's voice in your ear? David asked, ever blunt. The noise being the constant negotiation, I said. Is this okay? Am I being crazy? How do I phrase this so she doesn't get defensive? That noise is gone. The silence is brutal, but it's honest. David nodded. So what now? Now, I said, looking around my apartment that still held traces of her. A hair tie on the side table, a specific brand of tea in the cupboard I clean. I didn't mean just physically, though I started there. I bagged up the hair ties, the forgotten sweater, the half-used products in my bathroom. I gave the tea to David. I rearranged the furniture. I was exercising geography. Then I started building a new routine. The anxiety that had once been spent parsing Ella's texts and social media posts needed a new channel. I funneled it into the gym. The clank of weights, the burn in my muscles, the pure, simple metric of progress. Adding 5 more pounds, holding a plank for 30 more seconds. It was a language my body understood. It wasn't about getting ripped for revenge, it was about reclamation. This body, this mind, had been a habitat for her drama. Now it was mine again. I dove back into an old passion, woodworking. I'd let my small workshop in the garage gather dust because weekends were for couple time, which often meant following Ella to whatever brunch or event she'd planned. Now the smell of sawdust and linseed oil became my therapy. I started a simple project, a cherry wood bookstand. The focus it required was total. There was no room in my head for Ella when I was worrying about a dovetail joint. Chloe and I went on a few more dates. They were easy, fun. She was sharp and independent with a career she loved and a friend group that didn't seem to operate on dramatic ultimatums. There was no pressure. We were both, as she put it, enjoying the peace after the storm. She was a symbol of the possible, a proof of concept that conversations could be straightforward and life could be light. I was, for the first time in years, at peace. It was a quiet, solemn peace, but it was mine. The unraveling of Ella's world came to me in fragments, like news from a distant, collapsing country. It started about 3 weeks in. David came over, a look of grim amusement on his face. So, he said, settling onto my newly rearranged couch, the Ella and Alex saga. It's accelerating. I was sanding the bookstand. The rhythmic swish, swish, a calming sound. I didn't look up. I don't need a play-by-play, man. You're going to want this one, he insisted. Saw them at the grid yesterday. He was holding forth, loud as ever, holding her hand like a trophy. She looked tense, not happy, like she was waiting for him to say the wrong thing, which he did constantly. I kept sanding. Then David continued. He goes to the bar for another round and some guy, just a random dude, starts talking to Ella, polite, harmless. Alex comes back, sees it, and loses his. Not loud, but icy. Pulls her away, starts hissing in her ear. She looked embarrassed and small. Never seen Ella look small before. A flicker of something passed through me. Not sympathy, but a cold recognition. The control she'd accused me of wanting was now being applied with a crude, obvious hand by him. I said nothing. The sandpaper moved back and forth. The next report came via social media by accident. I was scrolling through Instagram stories and a mutual friend, Jake, had posted a clip from a barbecue. In the blurry background near the grill, you could see Ella and Alex. They were arguing. Her arms were crossed, her posture defensive. He was gesturing wildly, his face a mask of contempt. The clip was 10 seconds long. It wasn't the focus of Jake's story, just an unfortunate slice of life in the corner of the frame. I watched it once, then moved on. It was like watching wildlife footage. A week later, David's reports turned darker. Okay, this is getting messy, he said, his usual humor gone. So Alex basically moved into her place after you left, like immediately. I guess his sublet was up. Now, according to Sarah, who is somehow still talking to her, he crashed her car, Mark. Took it out, wrapped it around a signpost. He's fine, of course. I looked up from staining the now finished bookstand. Is she okay physically? Yeah, she wasn't in it. Financially, no. The guy has no insurance, like literally, and he's apparently saying it's not a big deal and she should chill. The repair estimate is astronomical. She's on the hook. I went back to staining, the rich walnut hue soaking into the grain. I felt a distant ping like radar detecting a shipwreck far out at sea, but no urge to launch a lifeboat. The kicker, David said, was at Mike's game night last weekend. They showed up and the tension could have been sliced and served. He was mocking her for being stressed about the car money, called her high maintenance and a burden, his words according to Mike. Ella started crying, actual tears, and Alex just rolled his eyes and left. Took an Uber, left her there sobbing. Mike had to drive her home. The image was stark. Ella, who had always been so fiercely in control of our narrative, who had dismissed my concerns as baggage, was now publicly being reduced to tears by the very man she'd chosen. The irony was so perfect it was almost literary, and still I felt nothing for her, only a deepening sense that I had escaped a collapsing building mere seconds before the whole thing pancaked. That night, as I was placing the finished bookstand on my empty shelf, my phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. But I knew the cadence of the words. Unknown number. Mark, we need to talk. It's important. The tone was so familiar, imperious, assuming importance, assuming access. The ghost of the phantom limb twitched, but there was no pain, just a memory of an old sensation. I looked at the message for a long moment. I didn't feel anger or longing or curiosity. I felt a profound and simple disinterest. My thumb moved to the screen. I didn't type a reply. I didn't block the number. I simply selected the message and pressed delete. Then I placed my phone face down on the new bookstand. The silence in my apartment was no longer hollow. It was full of the smell of wood stain, of the satisfaction of completed work, of the quiet certainty that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Her problem was now definitively hers, and from the sound of it, it was a much bigger problem than I ever was. The deleted text was a pebble dropped into the still pond of my new life. The ripples were small, distant things. I felt them, acknowledged them, and watched them fade. The silence that followed was thicker, as if Ella was holding her breath on the other side of the world she'd chosen. The ripples returned insistently a week later. Unknown number again. I'm sorry about the party. That was shitty of me. Can we just talk? I deleted it. Then 2 days after that, unknown number. Alex is out of the picture. It's done. It was a huge mistake. Can we please talk? The phrasing was telling. Not I made a mistake. It was a mistake. Still externalizing. Still framing herself as a passenger in her own life. I deleted it. But the cold curiosity of a scientist observing a failed experiment made me mention it to David. She's realizing the fun has a price tag, he grunted, spotting me at the gym. A price tag shaped like a totaled car and a broken ego. You're the receipt. She thinks she can return it all too. He was right. I wasn't a person to her anymore. I was a reset button, a safe harbor she'd smugly sailed away from, only to find the open water full of sharks. The next ripple wasn't a text, it was a phone call. The number was different, but the area code was one I associated with Sarah, Ella's most loyal lieutenant, the one who'd always liked my stability for Ella while secretly, I think, envying Alex's spark. I let it go to voicemail. An hour later, the notification popped up. I listened, hands steady as I loaded plates onto the barbell. Mark, it's Sarah. Her voice was a poor imitation of compassionate reason. Look, I know she messed up, okay? She knows it too. But God, Mark, she's really hurting. Alex was a total psycho. It was all a lie. He used her. He stole from her. I think he even took her laptop when he finally left. She's a wreck. She just needs to apologize to you properly, to explain. Can't you be the bigger person here? Just hear her out. You were always so good to her. The message ended. Be the bigger person. The last resort of those who have no legitimate claim. The moral shaming of the victim to clean up the mess of the perpetrator. I finished my set, my muscles burning with clean effort. Then I called the number back. It rang once before she picked up. Mark. Oh, thank God. Sarah, I said, my voice even, polite, the way you'd address a customer service rep. I got your message. So you'll talk to her? The hope in her voice was grating. No, I said. I appreciate you reaching out, but Ella and I have nothing to discuss. I hope she's okay, but her well-being is not my concern. Please don't call me about this again. There was a stunned silence on the other end. I'd never spoken to Sarah like that. Firm, unemotional, a brick wall where she expected an open door. The politeness made it immovable. But after everything you two had, you're just going to abandon her when she's at her lowest. Her tone shifted, turning accusatory. Goodbye, Sarah, I said, and ended the call. I blocked that number. It was the first one I'd blocked. A boundary, clean and simple. The final voicemail came a few days later in the deep quiet of a Sunday morning. It was from the original unknown number. Ella's voice was a raw, ragged thing, stripped of all its former smugness, vibrating with a panic so profound it was almost static. "Mark, it's me. He's gone. He just packed a bag and left. He took my laptop, my jewelry box, the cash I had in the kitchen drawer. He's gone. And everyone just pities me, or they laugh. Jake's girlfriend saw me crying in my car and just drove past. I have no one. I need you. You were always my rock. You were my home. I made a terrible, terrible mistake. Please, please, just call me back. I'll do anything. I'll go to therapy. I'll never speak to another guy again. Just please, I'm so alone." The message hit its 3-minute limit and cut off. I sat at my kitchen table, sunlight streaming in, painting my finished cherrywood bookstand in a warm glow. Inside me, there was no shot of glee, no victory dance. There was just nothing. A vast, quiet expanse where her drama was now a faint, tiny echo from a land I'd permanently immigrated from. Her suffering was real, but it was hers. It belonged to the life she'd chosen. When she sat on his lap, I felt no ownership of it and no desire to share its burden. I deleted the voicemail. The final encounter happened not because I sought it, but because the city is only so big and life has a sense of poetic timing. It was a Saturday at the bustling farmers market downtown. I was with Chloe. We were in what she called our Saturday groove. Coffee in hand, reusable bag over my shoulder, debating which artisan cheese to buy. We were easy together. We held hands, not for show, but because we liked to. She was telling me a funny story about a client at her architecture firm. And I was laughing, really laughing, the sound coming from a place of uncomplicated joy. That's when I saw her. Ella was standing by a stall selling wilted-looking kale alone. She looked diminished. Her clothes were rumpled. Her hair lacked its usual fierce style. She was staring at a bundle of carrots without seeing them. She looked like a ghost haunting her own life. She must have felt the weight of a gaze because she looked up. Her eyes locked with mine. A jolt went through her. A shock followed by a desperate, drowning hope. Then her eyes flicked to Chloe, to our joined hands, and the hope curdled into something ugly and raw. She looked back at me, a silent, wounded accusation in her eyes. "How dare you be happy?" She walked over, each step seeming to cost her. "Mark!" Ella's voice was a dry leaf scraping on pavement. I turned fully. "Oh, hi, Ella." My tone was the one I'd use for a coworker I barely recognized from another department. Polite, distant, and curious. She flinched at the sound. Her eyes, red-rimmed and tired, darted between Chloe and me again. "You look good." The words were ashes in her mouth. "Thanks," I said, a simple acknowledgement of fact. "Can we talk?" She blurted, the rehearsed lines from her voicemails tumbling out. "Just for 5 minutes. I've been through hell. You have no idea." I gave a small casual shake of my head. The movement was final. "There's nothing to talk about, Ella." The calm rejection delivered in public broke something in her. The wounded look hardened into a flash of her old entitled anger. "So that's it," she hissed, her voice low but vibrating. "After 3 years, you just replace me and that's it. You don't even care what he did to me, what he took from me." I looked at Chloe then. I saw no jealousy, no anxiety in her eyes, just a quiet, steady presence, a partner. I squeezed her hand, a silent communication she understood perfectly. Then I looked back at Ella. "I care about the life I'm building now," I said, my voice clear and calm, carrying no malice, no heat, just simple, unassailable truth. "The past is irrelevant. I wish you the best, truly, but we're done." I turned to Chloe, the conversation already a closed file in my mind. "Ready? The guy with the amazing cheddar is about to pack up." "Sure," Chloe said, her voice warm. She offered Ella a nod that held no hostility, only a profound and unbridgeable distance. "Take care." And we walked away. We melded back into the flow of the market, the sunlight, the smell of fresh bread and coffee. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I could feel her standing there, a statue of regret and rage frozen in a spot I had already left miles behind. As we sampled the sharp, perfect cheddar, Chloe bumped her shoulder against mine. "You okay?" I took a moment to scan my interior landscape. There was no turmoil, no lingering bitterness, not even pity. There was just the taste of good cheese, the warmth of the sun, and the calm, steady hand in mine. "Yeah," I said, and I meant it with every quiet, rebuilt piece of my soul. "I'm really, really okay." The problem was gone, and in its place I had built a piece that was entirely my own. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.